everybody. In today's video, we're going to be going over empirical formulas, right? So what they are, some learning strategies, and how to solve some problems relating to them. So let's get to it. So empirical formulas, the definition of them, I have it right here on the iPad. Empirical formulas are the simplest, most numerically reduced version of a molecular formula, right? So to give an example, I want to give the example of glucose. So glucose is C6H12O2, right? And if you were to divide every element in glucose by a factor of 6, you would get something like CH2O. Oops, little typo here, right? And again, I just divide everything here by 6, right? And then I get these coefficients, right? Cool. So with that being said, I can write a statement that looks like this, right? So that's kind of the first example that you want to be aware of, right? The idea of molecular formula versus empirical formula. So let me just highlight some of these things just so we can reference it for later. Okay. And the first tip, right, when facing some of these terms on an exam. So the first tip I want to give you is this. So I kind of just copy pasted, but tip 1, a molecular formula represents a specific molecule, but an empirical formula can represent a multitude of different molecules. Okay, so a lot of my students ask, what does that mean? So let's do example number 2. So what does this tip number 1 mean? So example 2. So if y'all are familiar with something called formaldehyde, it's usually used to preserve the decaying of dead bodies. It has a really distinct smell, but besides the point, formaldehyde, hopefully I spell this right, formaldehyde, something like that, you get the point, right? Has a molecular formula of CH2O, right? So I'm gonna highlight that, designate. Right, so I'm just highlighting everything that's molecular formula with green and everything with empirical formula as purple. Right, so formaldehyde has a molecular formula of CH2O. And notice how in this example, CH2O cannot be reduced any further numerically, right? So I can't divide each one of these by 2 because there's a 1 here and there's a 1 here, right? So this is the most simplest I can get. So therefore, because this is the simplest ratio that I can get between the C, the H, and the O, my empirical formula would also be CH2O. So empirical formulas are purple. So let's have that in purple, right? So cool. And this kind of goes into the idea that one molecular formula is specific to a molecule, but an empirical formula can represent a multitude of different molecules. So notice how for formaldehyde, it's represented by CH2O, which is its molecular formula, but its empirical formula is the same, right? CH2O. Notice how formaldehyde and glucose have the same empirical formula, right? But they have different molecular formulas. So the molecular formula for formaldehyde is CH2O, but the molecular formula of glucose is C6H12O6, right? So hopefully that's making a little bit more sense. Cool. So with that being said, let's go into a practice problem. So problem number 1, a compound was found to contain that amount of sulfur, that amount of oxygen, and that amount of hydrogen, given in percents. What is the empirical formula of the molecule, right? And they give you the general formula HXSYOZ, right? Meaning that when you find your answer, it's going to be in this form, right? You just have to find the numerical values for X, Y, and Z. Okay, so let's do that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to split, well, first actually I have to assume 100 grams. Usually it's the easiest way to assume 100 grams. So if I assume that there's 100 grams of this sample, 32.65 grams of sulfur, right? So again, I'm assuming 100 grams, and 32.65% of 100 is 32.65. So 32.65 grams of sulfur, 65.3 grams of oxygen, and then last but not least, we have 2.04 grams of hydrogen. Cool. So what do we do now? Once we've kind of written down all the masses of each element in the compound, we want to turn these masses into mole values. Okay, so we should have learned that earlier in the quarter, how to turn grams into moles. So for the sake of the first example, I'm just going to show you 6.5 grams, right? You want to cancel out grams, so grams, the molecular weight of sulfur goes on the bottom. 6 grams, and then moles goes on top. Put that in your calculator, and then I should be getting 1.01 mole, right? Moles of sulfur. And then I'm going to be doing the exact same calculation with O and H, right? So when I do the same calculation with oxygen, I should get 4.08, right? And then when I do the same calculation with hydrogen, I should get something around 2.02 moles of H, and then moles of O. Okay, so let's kind of separate these so we can see that, right? And what I'm going to do now is I want to check that each one of my moles is close to a whole number. So for sulfur, right, 1.01 is pretty much just 1, right? 4.08 is really close to 4. 2.02 is pretty close to 2, right? So usually what you want to be looking for is to the left of the decimal point, you want to have a number, obviously, and to the left of the decimal, and to the right of the decimal point, you want to have like at least a 0 there, right? So you want to have at least 1 0 here, just to make sure that this approximation is okay, right? If I had something like 2.5, right, I would have to multiply each one of the mole values by a certain number so that 0.5 can cancel out, okay? If you're having trouble with that, ask your facilitator. He can probably, or they can probably tell you about it, okay? So cool, so now we have our whole number ratios. And all we have to do now is we have to find the lowest number. So in this case, it's 1. And we have to divide each one of our mole values by that number. So 1 divided by 1, 4 divided by 1, 2 divided by 1. Right? So in the end, I just get 1, exactly the same thing actually, 4 and 2. Right? So I know that this molecule has an empirical formula where H is going to be, it's going to have 2. Right? So from right here, H is going to have 2. O is going to be 4, and S is going to be 1. So H2SO4. Right? And that would be my empirical formula. Okay? So that's kind of how you want to do things. Okay, so just to kind of wrap things up, I wanted to give y'all a second tip, which I kind of introduced and gave to you all already. Okay? But make sure, especially when on a test, because a lot of professors love giving you non-whole ratios, right? Make sure that the mole values you receive have or receive are close to whole number. Let me rewrite that. Right? And how do you know if it's close to whole numbers? Again, you have to make sure that to the right of the decimal point, there's a 0 there. Usually you're safe to assume that that's close to the whole number you're looking for. Okay? Cool. So look out for that because professors love giving you non-whole number ratios. Okay. And the last thing I want to leave y'all with is a cool learning strategy that we can apply to this question and many questions that you'll be finding in Chem 6B and Chem 6C, which is this. Here, let me copy and paste it. Learning strategy number one. Right. Definitely try to use this and it helped me a lot, especially in chemistry when I was taking it. Right. When faced with a long question type with multiple steps, create your own procedure that you understand. Just make a series of steps that make sense to you. So for example, when I was taking this class, I said, dang, empirical formulas can get really long and lengthy and kind of boring, quite honestly. Like look at this. These are a lot of calculations in here. Sorry. These are a lot of calculations in here. And these are the simpler kinds of empirical formulas. So I would want to have a certain amount of knowledge on how I can start even the most complex uh, problems. So what I did was I made a series of steps for myself, right? It wasn't necessarily the right way to do it or chemically correct. It just made sense to me so that when I was taking the test, I would be able to go through these questions easier. So this is kind of what I wrote, at least for the first two steps, right? So the first steps, when I find an empirical formula, usually I find the mass of each element, however that may be. Two, I would turn those masses into moles. Again, and then so on and so forth. 3, 4, 5. However many steps you need. So yeah, definitely use that. Make your own procedure. Make it make sense to you, and I assure you that will help you in the long run when you're faced with much more complex questions. With that, I will see you in the next one.